Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the latest and greatest special episode of Game Rifles. Oh my gosh, I almost forgot the name of the podcast. I am one of your hosts, Maximilian X, and as always, with me is the man with the master plan, the man who always thinks Metal Gear. It's Sean Templar. How's it going, Sean?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm very good. Thank you so much for being here. As we are in part two of our bonus episode extravaganza,
Yeah.
where we talk about our kind of our origin stories as gamers. How we grew up with video games, how that influenced us, like what kind of games we played, and it's just a way for all of you to get to know us. If you've gotten to know us in the past, if you've stuck with us for the past 4 seasons, first of all, thank you very much. Second of all, don't go back to episode one; it's
Oh man.
terrible.
Yeah.
Use these bonus episodes instead to get to know us better. So that's what this is. This is part two. If you haven't listened to part one yet, or watched part one yet, please go back and watch or listen to this episode before you go into this one, because you might get confused as to stuff that we reference in part one, um, that we might be talking about here,
Yeah.
which we definitely will. So go check it out.
Yeah.
All right. So
I think
we
we
were
left
talking about,
PC gaming
yeah,
a bit.
yeah, we were talking about PC gaming.
Yeah.
So when did you? Because I talked about how I got into PC gaming. Like, how did you first get into PC gaming?
I think it was with through friends because we didn't have a PC at home. We only had a PlayStation, and
When
then
did you get your first one? Actually,
my first own proper PC was I think in 2000. Um, 2002, 2003. No, I know, like I went to the eighth grade here,
hmm
and that's when I
hmm
got it for my
okay,
birthday. It was a Dell off the shelf computer, um, and I really used that one for quite a few years, to be honest. Yeah, and at the time,
nice.
I didn't realize anything about specs and settings. So you would install a game and you would just play it. You wouldn't mess around with the settings or something. I had like this fat monitor, not a flat screen yet. Um,
Ah man,
yeah,
CRTs, man.
Yeah, but my experience with PC gaming was like way before that. Like I remember as a kid, I would go to friends, and they would have A2 racers. You know, the Dutch game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my dude, you just
yeah,
unlocked memories
yeah,
of that kind of stuff. It's crazy.
yeah, or stuff like Red Cat. You know.
Red Cat, yo, I was
Yeah,
about to say, man, let's go.
yeah,
That stuff was awesome.
yeah, and Jazz the Jackrabbit, I think.
We talked about that a
Yeah,
little bit. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
and
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
stuff like
Did you
that.
play? Did you play the 2D Nukems?
Uh,
Did you even know about the 2D Duke Nukems?
I played them on PS1. I think they got ported to PS1, or at least Doom got ported to PS1. So I played it
Mm.
on that, and I don't remember if I think I played Duke Nukem on the N64.
Okay, so you've only seen it.
Yeah.
Like Duke Nukem was originally a 2D platformer on PC.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Like the original Duke Nukem, yeah. The reason, oh gosh, this is just gonna make me sound so incredibly old. The reason why I played it was because I used to go to these computer classes in my area,
Hmm.
and they teach you how like to do like typing and stuff like that, and they also had games on there. Like one of the games that they had was 2D Duke Nukem.
Mm,
They also had this game called Dangerous Dave, which was really fun. It was also a platformer,
okay.
like a puzzle platformer. And it was like at the time it was all shareware. I don't even know if you remember that term, but
I've
like
heard of it.
shareware was basically you had a game, but it wasn't the complete game. It was like just a taste, like the
Mm,
first three levels, let's say, and then you'd have to, at the time, you'd have to like mail the developers, like you'd send them like a check or money in the mail, and like, hey, I love this game. Could you send me the rest? and they'd send you the rest of the game
Wow.
on on diskettes, not floppy diskettes. Floppy
Wow.
disk is way before my time, but like diskettes, even the diskettes we still called floppy disks
Yeah. Oh my god.
because that's just how you what you called diskettes,
Yeah.
because they were like the smaller version of it, and like 1.44
I
megabytes.
remember
That was
that.
so much.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was crazy. So I learned how to type, but to this day I cannot do like the 10 finger typing.
Oh, me
I'm just
neither.
not good at it. Um, but that's where, because it was typing lessons. But I also had these games. So they had that. They had
Can you blind type, by the
um
way?
kinda sorta.
Hmm.
Like now I can for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Unless I'm tapping like on a tablet, then I have to watch because you can't.
I
It's
can.
just crazy.
I can. I'm not as fast as it anymore, but I can still do it on tablet as well.
Wow, that's crazy. That is actually a legit skill because I tried that. I cannot do that. I have to
Oh,
focus.
okay.
Um, but yeah, like if I'm typing right now, I can just do that, and that's no
Mm,
problem. I can type blind. But at the time, I could not do that at all. So I just focused on playing the video games whenever like we had the time. So like before class started and after class started, you could play video games.
nice.
So I played those kind of games, and it was super crazy. Like the first PC that we had was like a used one my dad bought from a going out of business sale
Mm.
from like a company that was going out of business, and it was this behemoth tower. It was this behemoth tower. It couldn't even play like 3D games well. It could only play the only game the first 3D game that I played was Descent, which also had a PlayStation 1 version, by
Mm.
the way. And it was so disorientating because you couldn't use the keyboard and mouse. It was full keyboard.
Oh man.
You had to use WASD to go up and down and strafe, and then like the other side to like move. So one hand was movement, the other hand did camera movements with like the arrow keys.
Mm-hmm.
It was so disorientating,
Oh man.
but it was so much fun for me to play it. Um, and that was back when Windows was Windows 3.11.
I didn't experience. I got like Windows 98 was like probably one of the first Windows I used.
Really? Oh, my
Yeah.
first one was 3.11 and
Yeah.
DOS.
Oh damn.
Like I played DOS games, man. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
That was woo. That was crazy, man. That was really crazy. It's just it's so like if you look at it back then and you look at it now, it's like kids do not understand the levels of like kids now will never understand the level of hoops you had to jump through
Yeah.
to play PC
Yep.
games. And it was at the time when you had 3D accelerator cards, but those stuff was expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get a 3D accelerator card until in the early 2000s
Yeah.
when I started learning to build PCs,
Yeah.
like I said before. And um, so after our first PC died, because of course it was a used computer that was in an office for years and years, it wasn't in the best condition to begin with. Like after that one died, which is I damn it, sorry. Like a lot of memories are unlocking at once right now. Do you? I know that you probably did not have a computer that did this because you had a Dell, but back then, you some computers had what they called a turbo button.
I did not have that.
So it's kind of like overclocking, but like it was built in.
Mm-hmm.
So if you needed a little bit more juice, you press the turbo button on like the chassis,
Mm-hmm.
and then the clock speed would increase.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I don't know if it actually worked. Looking back at it, I don't think it actually
I
worked,
wonder how they
or if
pull
it
it
did.
off.
I don't know. Like
Yeah.
I think it technically was that they had just had the stock chip in it, and it runs at two different speeds. And if you like, if you start it up in the lower speed, it uses less power.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the general idea.
Okay.
I legit do not know if that actually worked again because I could not play anything that needed actual 3D acceleration, and Descent technically does not need actual 3D acceleration.
Mm.
It didn't need a 3D card. Um,
I remember though that on when I had my Dell, I played in the
hmm,
beginning. I played a lot of strategy games because I played like mainly RTS games on PC, And I loved RTS. I still love RTS. I know like Red Alert 2 or Command and Conquer Generals or Age of Mythology or yeah, but like at that time the market was so broad because there
Mm.
was like it felt like a part of the PC market was only making either FPS or RTS. You know, they were constantly churning that out. Like so it was like the golden days of RTS. I mean, there was this game called Cossacks. I don't know if you remember that. It was based
I
like
don't
in
remember that, but
the
I think you've mentioned it
yeah, it
before.
was like in the Napoleonic era with muskets and stuff like that. And it didn't look super beautiful or anything, but it was just it played nice. Plus, you could like have like these massive armies, and then they would have the muskets, and then they would march in formation. Like if you selected a group and you would march them, they would actually march in formation, and then they would fire their muskets, and you would hear the sounds and see the little smoke come from their guns, you know. And then you would hear like a horn, like, and then you were like, "Oh, this is so cool," because it felt so immersive, you know. And again,
Yeah.
it didn't look as beautiful, but was nice. Or you had stuff like Empire Earth, which was like a strategy game through the ages. Because I remember back then, eventually I got into level editors and I started making my own levels and coming up with my own stories.
Really? That early?
Yeah, and it was so time consuming. It was oh my god,
I bet.
yeah. And like one of the most fun I had with a strategy game was the Lord of the Rings Battle for Middle Earth. That was back when EA had started Star Wars, the Lord of the Rings license. So they
Yeah.
made Battle for Middle Earth, which was really cool, and then they made Battle for Middle Earth 2 after a while. And we would play a lot of these games through eventually I got like that's when I got my second PC. I got my second PC in 2011, and we
Mhm.
built it together with a friend. So we went to like alternate and bought like all the parts, and we built the whole thing. And I remember back then we played a lot of games through virtual LAN through Hamachi. So we just pick a game and we just played, and it would be either
Oh my
be
gosh, Hamachi.
yeah, yeah, and then we would play Battle for Middle Earth against each other, or we would play Rainbow Six Vegas in co-op, or we would
Mm.
play Borderlands, or because back then we didn't buy our games, we would just download our games and then apply a crack and play it. You know, I know it sounds like so illegal,
Let's
but it
go.
felt so badass at the time. You know, you're like, "Yo, do you have a is a cracked version for that game already out?" And then usually it would be out when a game like dropped the same day. And they're like, "Oh, let's go, man! Let's play this or let's play that," you know. And then because DRM at the time wasn't as sophisticated as it is now,
Mm.
so but like eventually that also died off, and we just started buying games. I think it's just like an age thing, you know.
Yeah, it's
And
definitely. I mean,
also,
come on. At the time, we like, did you have a job?
no,
At most, you probably got an allowance,
yeah, and like
and that wasn't a lot.
yeah, you know. Plus, it became harder and harder for to download and crack games or play cracked games.
True.
So um
Well, it got more annoying. So.
yeah, but I remember that like we would play for. That's how I managed. That's how I put 300 hours in Battlefield 3. Battlefield 3 came out. We all bought it through Origin. I remember you had Battle Log. You had to go to the stupid website to pick a match to go in. We would pop on Skype, and then we would just play for hours. We would hang out during the day outside, and then in the evenings we would just go in and fire up Skype and play for Battlefield multiplayer. And then my mom would go crazy because she would shout upstairs like, "Hey, can you keep it down? Can you tone down the volume?" Because I would be just screaming into my microphone like, "Oh, medic! Oh, covering fire!" You know, because yeah, um, so much vivid
So
memories.
much.
Yeah,
Yeah. All right. So you said your first was a Dell, right?
yeah.
So my first was, I think right before I started high school, our family got our first computer,
Was it
and
a
that was a
Packard
Packard
Hell?
Bell.
All right.
Yeah, it was a Packard Hell, as we like
Yes.
to call it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Packard Hell.
Well, yeah, that's the PC that I modded. By the way, I threw
Oh
out the
man.
old guts and I put in like new
Mhm.
motherboard and like an actual graphics card and
It's funny
the
that those computers, like at least from what I always heard, always bad. Like always they
oh,
would
they were
break down.
horrible.
Always, but they still managed to sell a lot of computers.
You know why? Because it came with free software.
Oh.
Like one of the things that really sticks in my mind is that we got a lot of free games with that PC, but they were like CD-ROM
Mm-hmm.
games. The CD-ROM games back in the day. We had Freddy Fish
Mm.
and a bunch of other games. One of my first RTS was on the Packet Bell, and that was Total Total
Total
Total Destruct
Annihilation.
Total Annihilation.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Oh my gosh, that was my first I didn't even know what an RTS was.
Mm.
So it was basically the PC version of my experience with Secret of Mana,
Wow.
because at that point I had the only thing I'd play was like the 2D, the 2D Duke Nukem and Dangerous Dave, and it was cute, and like Descent was a little bit much,
Hmm.
but then you had like the CD-ROM games was like, this is for kids. I mean, it's cute and all. Like we had this CD-ROM game. One of the CD-ROM games that came with it were like a bunch of Disney games. So one of them was Mulan. Another one was 101 Dalmatians. Another one was another Disney game. I do not remember which movie. But like me and my little sister used to play those a lot. But Total Annihilation was for me.
Mm.
Like I was the only one that played Total Annihilation,
Wow.
and I had so much fun with it. I'd always play like skirmishes. I'd always play skirmishes. I never played the story. I didn't even like I saw a story. I was like,
But I have
I
that.
don't think I don't think I realized what the story mode meant.
Yeah.
And then I just played. I think eventually I did play the story mode, and I was like, oh, this teaches you how to play the game. At that time, I'd already learned how to play the game myself.
Mm. But that's what I had with like with GTA, for example. With GTA, like from 3 to San Andreas, basically. Like I remember at that
Yeah.
time, a lot of people would just free roam and cause chaos in the city. Like they wouldn't play the story because like a lot of people I spoke to, like, oh, I just fire up the game and I just go kill cops or something like that. I'm like, okay, but what about story? Pfft, I don't care about story. I just care about creating chaos and mayhem. And I'm like, I never understood
Story, what's that?
yeah, I never understood the appeal of that because I was like, no, 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 I'm gonna play the story because I want to know what's going on in this world, you know. And I never understood that appeal. That's so now that you're mentioning that you skipped out on the story, I have to think about that suddenly.
Yeah, so for a really long time, those were the only games that I played because those are the only ones I owned. And then my dad bought like these compilation these CDs with like a bunch of different games on them. Some of them worked, some of them didn't, because again, it was a Packard Hell, so big shock. But Total Annihilation is one that really sticks in my mind as a game that I really enjoyed playing. I'm almost tempted to go on Good Old Games and see if they have it, but I don't think they do because it's really old.
Maybe you can get it on
Um,
GOG.
yeah. I don't know if they do. I hope they do, but it would be really cool. But at around that time, a little later at that time, do you remember when you first got in? Did you get internet with your first computer? By the way.
Nope.
Okay, so neither did we. We didn't get internet. Like we would occasionally do dial up, very very occasionally with those those CD-ROMs that you
Yeah.
get like 3 minutes, and we do that. But it was like so bad, and I never, ever, ever got it to work
I
ever,
remember at my mom's place we would have Zonnet.
and I don't know why.
Yeah.
Zonnet, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I never got Zonnet to work.
We did. We would just plug in the cable and then it would dial up. You would hear the phone dialing up, and then we would just be on the internet. And but at the time, you couldn't do a lot on the internet. Like there wasn't no
Yeah,
YouTube or social media or stuff like that, or Google was just starting, maybe.
yeah. Google was just starting
Yeah.
around that time though. Do you remember? There were a lot of search engines back then. Like
Yeah.
Ask Jeeves was around still, but the one that I always used was Alta Vista.
Yeah. Me too. Yeah.
Alta Vista was so good.
Yeah.
I don't know how Google got taken over and basically dominated all the other ones, because Ask Jeeves outlived Alta Vista, which is crazy. Alta Vista was a good search engine,
Hmm.
and if things played out differently, I think we'd all be saying, "Hey, did you Vista that? Did you Vista that?" Instead, I
Probably.
don't know. And we didn't say, "Did you Vista that?" We just said, Did you look for that on the internet? Did you search for it?" Now you say, "Did you Google it?"
Yeah.
um,
So what was your
yeah, man. Yeah.
so what was your first handheld?
Game Boy.
Game Boy. Okay.
So I do have an interesting. I keep saying that. I have an interesting story about the Game Boy specifically.
Yeah.
So my older sister was like 18 years older than me.
Oh wow.
So she by the time I was a kid, she was married, and by the time I was like, I'm not gonna say my age, but I was a young uncle. I will say that. But my brother-in-law used to work at this like for this company that cleans like airplanes,
Hmm.
and on multiple occasions he found Game Boys.
Oh wow.
So I he gave me one, and one of them, and also another, and it came with a game
Hmm.
because obviously someone left it there with their game in it, and it was Bugs Bunny's Crazy Castle,
I think I've heard of that one.
and it's okay. It's a puzzle. It's a puzzle platformer. Um, and it's okay. It's like it's from the Crazy Castle series. So you have like Bugs Bunny Crazy Castle, you have Mickey Mouse Crazy Castle, all these other, like I think you have Garfield Crazy Castle even. And I played that for a really long time, and then he found another one, which he later gave to a cousin of mine. Um, but he took the Bugs Bunny game,
Hmm.
but the other one had Donkey Kong 94.
Oh.
So I got to keep Donkey Kong 94, and he gave, because I like Donkey Kong, because he asked me like which one do I like more. I said like, well, I like Donkey Kong. It's like, okay, well, I'm gonna give this one to your cousin, um, but he also needs a game, so I'll take the other one. It's like, okay, that's good, because I didn't care about Bugs Bunny Crazy Castle. It's so annoying. It's really annoying, especially when you died. It made that stupid music like and like that thing. I died so many times it seared into my brain.
Oh.
I hate it. But Donkey Kong 94 was great, and I loved it. So I kept that. I still have that one. I still have that cartridge around here somewhere,
Nice.
in this void with the Super Nintendo. And yeah, that was my first one. It didn't have a battery panel, so the batteries used to fall out.
Oh shit.
So the way I did it was I would take a bunch of paper, I would fold it up so that it's super thick and tight, and then I would like use tape,
Hmm.
like like not even like duct tape or anything, just like regular office tape, and I tape the back like crazy so that it stay in place and so that the batteries wouldn't fall out. And that's how I played because I
How
didn't have an adapter to play.
how DIY of you.
Hey, I used to do a lot of DIY stuff
Yeah.
back in the day when I was a kid, and you wouldn't even believe.
Oh.
Um, but yeah, that's how I played. That's how I played. That's how I got into mobile handheld gaming. And one of the games that I bought for the first time, and I've told you this story before, is Pokemon. Pokemon is the first game that I ever bought for myself. And I saved up my birthday money. I had saved up my birthday money, but I had no purpose for it. I mean, it was at the time I had the PlayStation. So at probably was saving for I was probably saving up to buy games, more games down the road. I don't know if I had like games at the time that I wanted to buy. And then like one day I was watching Fox Kids
Oh, Fox Kids.
and I saw Pokemon,
Me
the
too.
anime.
Yeah.
And it was a very early episode of Pokemon. I think it was the one where they go to the Pokemon school where they like, oh yeah, like instead of like traveling around, you can like go to the school and you'll get like a certificate that is an equal to like how many badges you can get instead of traveling, blah blah blah. And I watched that episode, and I don't know what in my mind made me go, "This seems very Nintendo."
Hmm.
I legit don't like. Again, this was when I was like 12. I don't know why I made that connection with Nintendo.
Okay.
But when the episode ended and I looked at the credits, at the very end, it says trademark Nintendo. I was like, oh, I was right. It is like a Nintendo thing. And that's how I found out about Pokemon. And then I found out, oh, that means there has to be a game. And sure, there was two games, red and blue. And I will never forget this because this is how it went down. I went to my local game store. They don't exist anymore. They were bought out by Bart Smith, and then Bart Smith also eventually died.
Was it E
They were
Plaza?
Yeah. So before they were called E Plaza, they were called Games Enzo.
Oh, I don't know that one.
They were. It was a small Amsterdam chain. Like
Okay.
only in Amsterdam they had this chain of like I think five, 4 or 5 stores before they got bought by Bart Smith and then turned into E Plaza.
Hmm.
And I went to my local one, which was about on a leisurely stroll 20 minutes away from where I lived, and I went there on an evening just for poops and giggles, and I saw that they had Pokemon, and I really wanted to buy it, and I knew that I had the money for it. I asked how much it cost, and they told me the cost, and I was like, okay, if I go home and come back real quick because I know you're closing at 6, will you let me buy this game? And they were like, sure, yeah, sure. So I booked it. And I mean, I ran home. I don't know how quickly I ran home. I ran home in like 10 minutes, maybe less. I don't know how fast I was going. It was going so fast. I got home, I got my money, I ran back. I got to the store all out of breath. Like I think minutes before they
Oh
closed.
wow.
Minutes, maybe like 10 minutes before they closed. And there were two shopkeepers there, a dude and this lady, and they were like really impressed. You're like, wow, you actually made it back before he closed. It's like, yes, because I really want the game. And the guy was so impressed. He was like, um, here, let me give you this strategy guide. Never heard of strategy guides back
Wow.
then.
Okay.
I didn't even know that was a thing. And his coworker was like, are you sure? And isn't he supposed to pay for that? Just like, it's fine, it's fine. We'll give it to him. He put in the effort,
Hmm.
essentially. I was like, oh, thanks. I did not realize that it's something that you had to buy. So I bought the game, I got the game and the strategy guide, and I happily went home and I went to my room. Um, I put it in my Game Boy, and it's old school Game Boy, no backlight, with the green black and green screen, and I started playing Pokemon. And I just picked up the strategy guide. I read what I needed to do, and I followed the strategy guide to a almost to a T.
Hmm.
So I was guided through the whole experience, and it was a really fun experience for me. And it wasn't until I want to say a year later that like one of my classmates was like, well, no, not even sorry, a couple of months later, where was like, hey, you have Pokemon. I brought Pokemon to school all the time. I was like, "Hey, you have Pokemon?" I was like, "Yeah, I love Pokemon. I love watching the anime. I love playing the game." He's like, "Uh, so how far are you?" And I explained to them like, "Yeah, I just looked things up in the strategy guide." I'm like, "Wait, you bought a strategy guide?" I'm like, "No, the game came with a strategy guide." It's like, "No, you idiot! You have to buy it."
Oh
It's like,
wow.
wait, what? No, I
You
got it
got it
for
for
free.
free, so.
It was like when I got back home, I looked at the cover and then I looked at the back and it says up and it had a price. 14.99 guilders. I'm like,
Uh oh.
oh, that's awesome. Because I did not even put two and two together that it's like something you have to buy because I'd never heard of a strategy guide. So that's how I got into Pokemon. And I never went back. I almost fell off when Black and White came out, but then X and Y came out and was the first 3D Pokemon, and I fell in love with it all over again.
Hmm.
And now we have Arceus, and it's the best Pokemon game ever.
Oh.
The game has come a long way. The series has come a long freaking way.
Uh,
From me, like running to get it to me being like apathetic about
I got a Pocket, Game Boy Pocket, and
it. Oh my god, you lucky son of a gun.
yeah, and I got Super Mario Land, I think it was called on it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
I got
yeah,
Super
yeah.
Mario Land on it, and then I also remember when Pokemon came out because of Pokemon Red and Blue, and then I had this friend, and he also got a Game Boy, and he got Pokemon Blue, and I got Pokemon Red, but I didn't have a strategy guide, so it was like, and I was pretty young, so I just, back then you would just trial and erroring your way through games, and that's
Yeah.
kind of what I did. And then I got pretty far. You would talk to people at school, and people said, like, "Oh, you gotta go and do that, or you gotta get the bike, or you gotta get the fishing rod, or you got to get the that Pokemon to beat that, and blah blah blah." And I never finished the game because it was just, because that's the same issue I had with Pokemon Brilliant Diamond. It
Hmm.
That one feels too grindy and too long for me. So like I just don't have the attention span for it. But I remember like I would play a lot of Pokemon Red. I still have my red cartridge, so I just keep it
I do.
safely
I,
hid.
I've I have my blue cartridge.
Yeah,
I checked it a few years ago, and I was hoping that the save file was still there, but it was gone.
the battery's probably
My
dead.
whole team was gone. I do
Uh,
remember my. Do you remember your team composition before you stopped playing?
no.
Like, who was your starter? Let's start with
Char-
that. Who was your starter?
Charmander.
Mine was Bulbasaur because of the anime.
Hmm.
Because I watched because at that time before I got the game, I saw the episode um about the Bulbasaur Garden,
Mm-hmm.
and it showed like the evolution of Bulbasaur to Ivysaur, and then of course that big giant Venusaur. And I was like, also like Bulbasaur was just like a really cool character because before that I saw the episode where Ash gets Bulbasaur for the first time, and like he was really protective, and like the character of Bulbasaur in the anime spoke to me. Let me
Mm.
just put it that way. I could really see myself like bonding with that kind of a Pokemon. So that's why I picked Bulbasaur.
Okay, I can understand that.
Um, yeah. So my I ended with Bulbasaur. So I had a Venusaur, I had a Pidgeot, which I loved, a Clefairy, a Clefable, sorry, which was my HM slave. So it had all the HM moves. I had a Dragonite, I want to say, and an Articuno, and I think I switched between Moltres and Zapdos. It depended on the situation, but like Articuno was always on my team at the very least.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what did you get after the Game Boy? For me, it was a PSP, and I think for you it was a DS,
No, Game Boy
a
Advance,
Game Boy Advance.
which was the first console that I bought
I
because
forgot
I
that the Advance
still
was there.
because my parents bought me the GameCube.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the Game Boy Advance, I actually worked for it, and
Okay.
I got a summer job.
Yeah.
I was 15, 16 at the time. I got a summer job because I wanted to get it, and I worked for like the whole summer. And on the last day I got paid, I had enough money to buy the system and the game, so I bought that and Konami Crazy Racers. And like a couple of months ago, I found my copy of Konami Crazy Racers. I looked for it forever because I was it was gone. Like I could not find it. I I figured that somewhere in between all the moving that I did, I lost it. And I was like, you know what? Fine, whatever. Someday I will find a used copy and I'll pick that up. And then all of a sudden I was doing some cleaning, and I find my Game Boy Advance, and in the my original Game Boy Advance, because I had that and I had the SP. And in it I found Konami Crazy Racer. And I looked at it, I booted up, the save file's still active, all my save files are there. I am super crap at the game. Oh my goodness! If I had a way to capture um, Game Boy Advance games, I would so stream that so much. Just like I'd start a new save file, I'd stream that and be like,
I think
"Yeah,
it's
it's so
I think
cool."
it's possible, right? I think you have
I
Like,
have a Game Boy with it. I have a GameCube with the Game Boy player. Yes,
yeah.
whose disc I also recently lost until and found again.
Oh my god.
But I have it now, so I can play it on. I can play it on the Game Boy player. So yeah, that was my first. The DS was after that.
Hmm.
So
I got a PSP, and I remember, like, I got this Power Unlimited magazine, and then
mm,
it talked about that the PSP had come out in Japan, and then it was going to come out in September here. And like, I pre-ordered one at the Bart Smith, and I just like read that Power Unlimited every day because, as a kid you're just impatient. And I got Metal Gear Acid for it because, I'm a Metal Gear fan. And I got my
mm.
PSP, I got Metal Gear Acid, and like I played the whole weekend, and I finished Metal Gear Acid. And then, because I remember the first time when I saw uh, a friend of mine had got his PSP earlier that day before I got mine, and I remember the first time I saw the PSP, it felt surreal because you had never, because like the last handheld I had owned was a Game Boy Pocket. I never bought a Advance or a SP or whatever. That was, the games didn't appeal to me. So I was always used to these, you know, less prettier graphics, to put it that way. And then when I,
Pixel
yeah,
graphics,
and then
man,
when I
pixel
first saw the
graphics.
PSP, it felt like somebody had just like it was just playing a video, because your mind couldn't comprehend that it was actually running real time, that pretty on it. It was Dynasty Warriors, and yeah.
Oh,
So like, I'm like, holy crap!
also one of your favorite
Yeah, I played
franchises.
Dynasty Warriors on PS2, and now it's running on PSP. And like, I couldn't believe it. And then I got mine, and then like I played all sorts of games on it. I remember, and I know that the games on the PSP were hit and miss, but it was a lot. It was really popular. I think a lot of game developers also struggled because they didn't know what to do with the PSP. So like,
Mhm.
some would make unique PSP experiences, but some would just try to force a port to the PSP, which did not work because you missed an analog stick and buttons. But I remember vividly playing
Yeah,
Cypher.
you just had that little nubbin.
Yeah, yeah, and you needed to. If you use it a lot, it would just hurt your finger eventually because you would get a sore thumb because of it. But I remember playing games like Siphon Filter, and though that was one of the best PSP games, and the sequel, and you had ad hoc mode. So like in school, we would just prop up our book, and then in class we would just play Siphon Filter multiplayer against each other. And then if sometimes the people you were playing against were at the other side of the classroom, so like you would wanted to shout or scream at them because they killed you, but you couldn't because you're like, I'm in class. I gotta make sure I don't get busted. And then
Mm,
I remember playing Splinter Cell Essentials, I think, which was a
yeah.
horrible game, but I really enjoyed it. Or Star Wars Battlefront 2 came out for the PSP. It was also not a
Yeah.
great game, but I
Oh,
liked that game.
you didn't get the you weren't like me, right? You weren't collecting like handhelds.
No, 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 no.
Oh my
I had the
goodness. I don't
PSP
even want.
1000 and I sold it and I got the
Yeah.
PSP 2000 instead. Yeah,
Nice.
because it was lighter and faster and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And oh my goodness. Like
I still have it. Yeah.
I wanted to get the Darth Vader one
Mm.
that came with Battlefield on
Battlefront.
PSP.
Yeah, yeah.
Of Battlefront, sorry.
Yeah, yeah, and there's this one game I really want to play. It's called Key of Heaven, and it's kind of like a JRPG. I think it's made by Sony itself, and it's a really really cool RPG. I bought it like twice, but then eventually I got bored with it and I traded it in. But it's still a game I really want to play because it was a really fun game. And yeah, I still have my PSP. It still works. I sometimes fire it up. I played Metal Gear Acid 2 a while back on it. I mean, I remember because eventually Kojima started bringing Metal Gear games to the PSP. Instead of Metal Gear Acid, he actually brought Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops to the PSP. He brought Metal Gear Solid Peacemaker to the PSP, which were full blown Metal Gear games on the PSP. So it felt so surreal having this Metal Gear Solid experience in the palm of
Hmm.
your hand. Oh man, what else?
Key of Heaven. Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't think I've ever seen this game before,
it's a pretty cool
but
game.
it's 22 euros on bulb.com,
Oh wow, that's still a lot for a game like that.
and I'm pretty sure it's used.
Oh, probably, yeah, yeah. I try to sometimes keep like mark plots and stuff like that in looking at that, but
The developer was Climax Entertainment. Why does that sound familiar to me? What did they do?
I don't know. Yeah, and the Marktplaats, it's like $5.
Oh, they did Shining Force and the Landstalker series. Okay, okay. Yeah, they did a bunch of games like Runabout 2, Super Runabout, Dinosaur King.
Yeah, I found it here on Marktplaats for $5.
Yeah, see? Bull is trying to rip you. Whoever is selling it on Bull.com is trying to rip you off.
Yeah, I might actually. It's €4. Well, I'll.
Do you still have a PSP?
I do. I play on it from time to time. I was playing
Okay.
Metal Gear Acid like a couple of months ago. Metal Gear Acid 2, because I don't have the first one. I still want to buy that one. I have
I
two, because two came with that whole ugly 3D cardboard thing
Oh,
you
the
could put up.
barb. I
Yeah,
wanted that so bad. I
yeah,
was like, oh, that sounds so cool. Like,
yeah,
hey, yeah, people are downplaying it because they
yeah,
are just they don't want to be like elitist about it. It's fine, but I want it. I
yeah.
want it.
And
I still want it.
yeah,
Did you get that
I
the
still have it.
box?
I have it. Yeah,
Yo,
yeah.
next time we meet up, you have to bring it because I want to experience it. I never experienced. That's an experience that I want to experience.
Sure. It doesn't. I'm like I never tried it, but sure, I'll bring it along.
How have what?
Yeah, but you like it's this cardboard thing you slide over your PSP, so you have to hold it like this because it's like two
So
holes.
what?
You know how fatiguing it is to play like this.
Oh my gosh! You know what? I will play it and I'll do a mini review of it. And
Sure,
then you'll know what it's
sure.
like.
Yeah. So that and after that, I like Sony announced the Vita, and initially I wasn't excited for the Vita. I was like, "Pff, yeah, whatever, because back then we were transitioning to PS3, and then the launch lineup did was okay because I remember on PSP, Sony brought their AAA games to PSP like SOCOM Fireteam Bravo, or there was another game, another SOCOM game, and SOCOM back then was pretty great because it was the multiplayer game on PS2. I remember playing SOCOM Fireteam Bravo on my PSP multiplayer against Americans, and I had bought this special headset, and then we would voice chat, and it felt so cool, you know. And then you had Gran Turismo and all sorts of stuff. And then when the Vita came along, I was like, okay, this doesn't look so cool. And then I bought it in an impulse, you know?
Hmm.
And then when I bought it, like in an impulse, there was, what was the first game I bought on my PSP? On my Vita. I can't remember. They had like a,
What did you buy?
it was Unit 13. I remember that one. And
Why does that sound familiar?
that's also made by the SOCOM developers. It's like a mercenary game. It's a third-person mercenary game. I bought Unit
Okay.
13. I think shortly after that they closed down Zipper Interactive because the game wasn't as great.
Yeah.
And I remember playing. I don't know. I still have those games, but like the Vita, I barely use my Vita. I still have it. It still works, but I barely use my Vita because just there wasn't a lot of compelling stuff coming out for it. At least not for me.
Wait, but around that time you had Vita PSP plus PS Plus games. Did you not play any of those?
I downloaded. I probably claimed them all, but I never played. The only one I want to play is Tearaway, but I don't think I have it on the
Oh
Vita.
my
I have
god,
it on the
Tearaway is so
Yeah, I
good.
have it on the PS4, so I want to play it on the PS4.
Oh, the PS4 version?
Yeah, I thought I got Tearaway through the Vita store with PS Plus, but I looked at like last week. I was looking at it, but I don't have it. I have the PS4 version.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Vita, man. That's before. Well, I did eventually end up getting a Vita. So my story with the PlayStation Portables is funny.
Oh,
It's very short, but there were reasons why I got those systems. So with the PSP, the only reason I got it was because Monster Hunter.
we have a small hiccup. For some reason, I minimized the window, and now it is not screen recording the full window.
No.
Yeah. So the video is frozen.
Okay,
So we
yeah.
will
Do
have
you want
to.
to take a break?
Yeah. So stick around. We will be right back.
And we're back from our technical difficulties. These things happen. These
Yeah.
things happen. It's all good in the hood. For all of you that are listening, it's probably just like a quick second. You probably just heard the "We'll be right back" theme, and we're back.
Yeah.
Um, so I was talking about uh how I got my PlayStation Portable game system. So the PSP, the only reason I bought it was Monster Hunter.
Oh wow. I remember that one being really big though when it came out, especially in
It
Japan.
was really
That was like
big,
a
yeah.
huge hit.
Yeah. So there was this TV show, not Game Kings. Game Kings was the thing, but the Game Kings doesn't really. I don't think they really covered Monster Hunter. There was another game show that had a narrator. I do not remember for the life of me what the name of
Was
that
it
show was. It
Gamo?
was a Dutch one. Gammo! My God! Yes, Gammo was the shiznit. It wasn't long. They always stick to the core stuff, and it was like this voiceless this narrator that did like previews and reviews, and sometimes they had special features, but it's like I think it was like a half-hour show. It wasn't really that long. Gamma was so good. Damn.
Yep, I remember Gamo.
They did. I think they reviewed every every single like Monster Hunter game that came out. Monster Hunter 1, Monster Hunter I think they even did import reviews.
I can't remember.
So I remember like in the early days they would do import reviews for like the Resident Evil games.
Hmm.
That's how I learned about Resident Evil, through Gemo, because I never played Resident Evil because I was a big fat baby. Um until RE4, but we'll get to that. But that's how I learned about Monster Hunter. And around that time, this was like 2007 ish. I was really like I started listening to podcasts around 2005. 2007, I was invested in podcasts. I listened to a lot of gaming podcasts. Um, and one of my favorite gaming podcasts from back then was from One Up Yours, and they were big fans of like Monster Hunter. So I always was intrigued. And then years later, there was this like pseudo sequel podcast to One Up Yours called 8 4 Play, which still exists to this day. They're also a bi-weekly podcast, and I love those guys. They podcast. They are from they're not Japanese. They're Americans, but they live in Japan and
Hmm.
they work in the game industry and stuff like that. They work for Japanese companies.
Nice.
And but then their first debut episode, they were talking about Monster Hunter Try, because at that time it had made the jump from PlayStation 3 to Wii as an
Ah.
exclusive. And they were talking so passionately about Monster Hunter, and they were talking about the claw on the PSP, the Monster Hunter claw. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I played Monster Hunter Freedom Unite on the PSP, and yeah, you really have to use the claw because otherwise it's like kind of unplayable.
What is the claw?
Because so the I don't have a PSP with me, but the claw is like this. If you're watching the video version, so basically you held the controller like this, the buttons on your left on your right hand, right? But you have to use the camera. You have to use the D-pad, but you moved around using the analog nub
So the
since it's a
camera
3D
is
game.
controlled through the D-pad. Oh my god.
So if you can't shift between the two. You can't do camera control and then move. You need to be able to do both at the same
Oh
time.
my god.
Hence the claw. So the claw is literally using like your index finger and your middle finger to your middle finger did the camera work on the D-pad. Your index finger used the D-pad, your thumb of course for the analog nub, and then your middle finger was to use the right shoulder button.
Oh my god.
Yo, the finger gymnastics you had to play for Monster Hunter on PSP. The fact that it was more popular on PSP is bonkers if
Yeah,
you
I
think
remember.
about how you have to play the game.
Yeah.
But in Japan, it was popular because of ad hoc mode, and you had a lot of places where you could go and play Monster Hunter. They had cafes where they had dedicated like sections where you could play Monster Hunter.
Wow.
Like, hey, if you're looking for people to play Monster Hunter over here, sit here. There are probably three other like-minded people that have their PlayStation portables with them playing Monster Hunter.
Wow. Okay.
And of course, kids played it on the trains, to school and on the school grounds and whatever. But yeah, grown-ups, they would just go to cafes or find somewhere to meet up and then play ad hoc mode Monster Hunter.
Wow.
That's why it was so big in Japan.
I didn't
We
know.
never had that
No.
until the Wii version came out, until Monster Hunter Tri came out. It was the first game that supported online.
Yeah, because I remember that reading the announcements of Monster Hunter and how popular it was on the PSP in Japan. I was like, wow, okay, because that's I think one of the reasons why the PSP grew so much in Japan because of Monster Hunter.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got the special version, which I want. It came with something. Oh, right, a really thick manual. I sorry, it's not a special version. It was the regular version. It just came with a fat manual.
Wow. But does it have like Monster Hunter branding on the PSP or?
No, no, no. I just bought a regular piano black. I think 2000 or 3000,
Hmm.
um, or 4000. I think mine is even. I think mine was a
I totally
4000.
forgot that Sony also did the PSP Go for a while.
Oh my gosh, that's the worst thing they ever
Yep.
did.
I kind of want one because it's like,
For preservation, I want one,
yeah,
but it's a
yeah,
piece of crap.
yeah,
Because I think was that digital only?
yeah,
I think it was, right?
yeah.
You
It had no
couldn't put a
physical
UMD
space.
in it.
Yeah.
You had to use the PlayStation Store to play games. And it was tiny because it was basically a Sony mobile game where they essentially took like the keyboard out and then put controls in it instead. What was it based off of? I think. Oh, wait a
Those
minute.
things are still expensive. I'm looking them up now, and it's like $200.
Oh my gosh, you're right. I see one for 147, but dang, that's still a lot.
I see one for 120.
Let me see if I can. Why is this in Spanish?
So,
Why am I getting like this weird language like Wikipedia page? Why am I not getting the English Wikipedia?
I kind of want one
Wait, why?
because it's
You
just
mean for
like,
preservation or?
yeah, it's cool and fun to have.
Oh my gosh, why am I not getting the
Holy
real?
crap! This dude is selling the Battle for Middle Earth 1,
Yeah,
2, and the expansion on disc
yeah.
for €90.
What?
Is it that expensive?
That's really expensive.
Damn.
Does it say what it's based off of? Damn it, it doesn't say. There was this Sony. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The overall shape and sliding mechanisms are similar to those of the Sony Milo Com 2 interface. Which is like, if I look at the Milo, like the PSP is way prettier than the Milo because that is a ugly ass device.
I kind of want it.
But nah, man, 250 is too much, man.
No, I see one for
Like, if you
120.
find, oh, I think if you can find one for less than 100, it would be worth it.
Yeah.
Because remember, the PlayStation Store is dead on
Yeah,
PlayStation
so like I'm
Portable,
thinking like how am I
so
supposed to
it's
get games
absolutely
on it?
worthless.
Yeah, so how am I gonna get
You
games
have
on
to
it?
you have to rip it. You have to use.
Yeah,
You have to
or
rip
I
it.
have to download. No, I can't download. No, there is still a way to get games on the PSP. I think.
Yeah, I think you really. I think you'd have to mod it or something.
I think
Like,
so.
or like homebrew it, so you'd have to crack it or something like that.
Probably.
Because the PSP, I've never even stopped to think about it, but the PSP Go is like actually dead now because they took down the store.
Yeah.
Yo, rip if you have a PSP Go, man. Pour one out.
Yeah. I see them well for the retail chain CEX.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They sell them for 100,
Oh, that's good
but they
because
don't
I
have.
always
Oh,
figured
but
they
they don't
never.
have. Do they have it in stock?
Well, maybe one of the stores has them in stock. Wow, did we diverted real quickly, didn't we?
That's what you get with these kind of episodes because it's just so
Oh my gosh.
nostalgic.
Yo, the PSP Go, man. Here's the thing though, because I remember there were rumors going around that they were working on a next gen system and an in between system that was digital only. And people were like, nah, no. And then the leaks started coming out.
Yeah,
And I don't know if you remembered the leaks coming out, and people were like, if they do this, this is the dumbest thing ever.
yeah, because they killed it pretty soon, the PSP Go, because it
Oh,
wasn't as
yeah, because
popular.
yeah, well, it wasn't popular and it came out, like I said, it was an in between system.
Yeah,
Like shortly thereafter, they announced the Vita. It's like, yeah, why would you pick up a PSP Go if you already have a PSP? Why would you get a digital only
yeah.
system? It was
I
small
think it's
and you could take it with you easier,
yeah, but
but the controls weren't as good
I think it came
and you
out.
couldn't do the claw.
Yeah, and I think it came out too early for its time because then digital wasn't as popular. So like if they
Yeah,
did like a Vita Go, that would have been a bit more successful, I think.
yeah. Um, the only downside with both the Vita and the PlayStation Portable is that they both use proprietary save media. Like you had to buy the memory stick, which is like super expensive. It's like,
Yeah.
why would you not just use SD? Oh wait, because memory stick is a proprietary media from Sony. That's why they're
I
doing it, so that
remember
they can get more money.
512 megabytes of the Pro Duo Sony memory card was 80
Yeah.
euros. A gigabyte was 125 euros.
And they never went down in price.
Yep. And eventually they
Like,
opened up the ecosystem because I remember got one from SanDisk years later,
yeah,
which was cheaper and it had more storage. I was thinking like was 8 or
obviously.
16 gigabytes and was a lot cheaper. Yeah.
Yeah. By that time, I had already moved on from the PlayStation Portable. And the Vita is worse now because that one used its own proprietary like memory card,
Yep.
which is the dumbest thing on the planet. Like
Yep.
if I look up Vita memory card,
I got one for
um,
cheap because my Vita eventually stopped working and I couldn't figure out why. So I troubleshooted it a little bit and I found out that the memory card in it was causing the issue because it wouldn't boot up. So I
yeah,
eventually was able to get a brand new memory card through Marktplaats, was still sealed for
yeah.
like 30 bucks and it was like 8 gigs, but still it was brand new. So
What the heck? Can PS Vita use micro SD cards? Memory sticks and cards similar to those used in the network in the Vita, nor do the common formats like SD. Sony is yeah. That doesn't make sense. Yeah, but you know what I'm looking at right now?
no.
Like, there's this ad for a PS Vita adapter,
Oh,
like where you could put a micro SD card in it. It's not that expensive.
no.
Yeah, it's like $8, $7. I'll send it to you, but I'm like, okay, this is a game changer because a Sony PS Vita memory card on like the 8 gigabyte one I'm seeing here on like Marktplatz is like $40. It's 8 gigabytes. What in the actual love of crap? Why in the Sam Hill would you even accept that? Yo, what? Oh, dang. Okay, sorry. That was a that was a PS Vita with games that was costing 150. I was like, the memory card is 150. So yeah, 4 gigs, $30. Yeah, bye. So yeah, if that adapter is real and it works, that's a game changer. You know how happy I would be because I would just buy because you could buy like a 64 gigabyte SD card for
Mhm.
super cheap.
Yeah. I got a 128 gigabyte micro SD card for my Switch for like 15, 20 bucks.
So yeah, I think I'm gonna look into this. If it's that cheap, I might actually pick one up. Um, I might pick one up and just load it up with games because I have a bunch of games again, PlayStation Plus, that I have yet to play because I'd never had the space for it. I have a bunch of PlayStation PSP games and PlayStation 1 games that I want to play on the Vita because it's just convenient. If this works, it makes it possible.
That would be cool. I'm just looking for a cheap offer on a good deal on a PSP Go because I want one.
Oh my gosh. Okay, this is literally just evolved into like one of our conversations that we usually have after a podcast or outside of podcasting.
Yeah, I think we should wrap this part up, and then we will definitely come
Yeah.
back to part three, and then we'll talk about.
There is one question I do want to ask you before we head out.
Yes.
Since we are talking about PlayStation Portable and PlayStation Vita, if Sony were to say we're doing a new handheld,
Hmm.
or they would try to add a third tier to the PlayStation 5 route and have like a less powerful but hybrid PlayStation 5.
Hmm.
It's all digital.
Hmm.
Would you go for it? It's not as powerful, so the games are not as pretty,
Hmm.
but they still run PlayStation 5 games.
I don't know, to be honest, and I'll tell you why. Because let me give you my reasoning behind why I think it's a plausible idea. Because we haven't talked about it a lot on the show, but the Steam Deck has officially launched a while back,
Hmm.
and pretty much all the reviews I have seen so far are raving, super positive, like exciting, because I think, and that's what I said in a previous episode. This is like the Steam Deck basically creates this new category of handheld gaming. It's like this high end segment of handheld gaming, and there are other companies that do it. Like Aya is a company I think from based out of
I
China.
Neo,
Yeah, they
yeah.
have the Aya Neo, and they have like they have like an extensive range of these handhelds now, like the Pro and the this and the that, and they have like a lot. So there's a lot of
Except they're
flavors.
super expensive.
Yeah. So, but I think that's like what we're trying to do. They like have different kinds to appeal to different segments. So, like, I think it is plausible that if the Steam Deck keeps on growing in the way that it is, and it looks like it's growing a lot,
Mm.
that it is plausible for Sony to look into something like that, and then eventually consider doing it, but in their own way. To be honest, I don't know if I would buy it outright because, like, I have a Switch and I don't use my Switch on the go. That's maybe also because I don't travel as long as you do because, yeah, my journey to work is like an hour, but it is like using different means of public transport. So I'm not in one like for a long period of time. Like I take the train for 10 minutes and then I take the subway for 5 minutes and then I walk, for example. So I don't have like that hour or an hour and a half for like that I'm in the train that I can actually focus on my Switch. So mostly my Switch is on the couch playing something like Stardew Valley or something like that, or I want to get back into Breath of the Wild or Astral Chain or something like that. But if I look at how often I use my Switch, it's not a lot. Maybe it's also because I'm not playing anything at the moment. So I don't know if I would outright buy a Sony handheld because I'm afraid it would be in the same realm unless they make really great games for it that I really want to play. Because then I'll just,
Mm.
if they make unique, great experiences, then I'll just probably buy it because then it's like, hey, that's a game I just want to play. And if it's not available on PS5, then you're like, okay, then I'll play this on the whatever it's called. But if it's like if it's like the handheld version of a PS5 game, I'm not as inclined to do it because I'm like, I can play it on my big screen 4K TV in 4K on the couch, which is a lot more comfortable.
Okay.
Because that's what appealed to me about the PSP. They brought unique experiences to the PSP. You know?
Yeah, but the thing that's I miss the times when they did bespoke stuff.
Yeah.
Like per console, because that's something we didn't talk about it in the first part, but back then, like, I touched upon it a little bit with the different versions of Aladdin,
Hmm.
but back then you used to have like each console had its own version. Sometimes they'd be similar, but sometimes it also have like, oh, the Super Nintendo has like a bonus level, or the Mega Drive version um has different levels, and stuff like that, or it looked different, or it played different. And in the time of the DS and the PlayStation Portable, that did happen, but it didn't happen with the Vita because the Vita had dual analog sticks, so you had
Yep.
more console like experiences. Um, so yeah, I get where you're coming from. I do miss the bespoke versions. Like for example, on the Wii, you had like the Ghostbusters games, on
Hmm.
PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, and the Wii version was unique because it had the Wii remote,
Yeah.
and used that to play the game. It's like
Yeah.
it was. I'm like if am able to find that game, I will pick it up. I regret never picking up the Wii version.
Yeah. Like, let me give you an example. And for you, it's different than for me. But that's probably one of the main reasons why I don't use my Switch as often. Because,
Mm,
like, for example, Hogwarts Legacy is coming to the Switch. We have no idea if it's going to be a cloud version or like an actual version running on Switch hardware. But, like,
exactly.
for me, it's pretty easy. Like, I want to play it on PS5 because that's the best possible experience I can get from that game. So there's little incentive for me to get the Switch version. But if the Switch version were to be like this completely unique experience on it that did its own thing and that ran natively on the Switch, then I might even consider buying that next to the PS5 version because I'm like, hey, I want to play that version because it offers completely different take on the game. And
Yeah.
I feel like it's not being done enough, and I wish it was done enough because that was basically eventually developers figured out with the PSP like we cannot port our main PS2 or PS3 game to the PSP because it doesn't work. So we have to
Yeah.
come up with our own tailor-made game for this platform, and that's when the handheld really started to shine.
Okay, we'll definitely talk about this more because the reason why I'm saying that we'll definitely talk about this more because the reason why this is not possible anymore is because there are less and less smaller developers to rely on,
Yeah,
especially when acquisitions keep happening.
yeah, yeah,
So yeah, because when you had multiple versions, they were not done by the same developer. They were done literally
yep,
by like different smaller developers that are usually outsourced, like developers for hire
yep,
that did like these bespoke
yep.
versions. Sometimes they were great,
Sometimes
sometimes they were absolute dog turds,
I
but at least they existed.
I can't remember who said it, but it's like this famous there's this thing you see in like reels a lot or in memes or and it's like sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit. And a lot but then it's like with this Italian or Spanish voice, so it makes it like even sound better. So that
Oh
yeah,
man,
yeah,
yeah, that's true, man.
yeah,
Holy smokes!
yeah,
All right, I guess that's it for part two.
yep,
Then
yeah.
cool. Will you do us the honors?
Yes. So thank you for tuning in for this part two of the bonus episode. This is turning out to be a lot more fun than we had initially intended because we thought like, I know we'll just do a short episode, but now we're already in the second part, and I think it will go to a part four or maybe a part five. So thank you for tuning in. The audio version is available on your favorite podcasting platform: Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, Overcast, wherever you listen to your podcast. The video version goes up on YouTube the same day and time. This one, the audio version goes up. We will put a link in the description for it. But there's also a link in our bios on Instagram, for example, where you can just click on it and you can find everything related to Game Rivals. Where you can reach us through email, gamerivalsfeedback@gmail.com. On Twitter, it's game underscore rivals underscore and at Maximilian. On Instagram, it's at Game Rivals and at Maximilian underscore X. And as I said in the bio, there's a link, and if you click on it, you can find all the places that we are. On Twitch, it's twitch.tv/ Maximilian underscore X and slash Sean Templar. On TikTok, it's at Game Rivals at Maximilian underscore X. Um, I feel like I'm forgetting one.
Did you do the email?
Yeah, I did the email. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I got them all.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, I think you got them
yeah.
all.
On that note, I am still and always will be Sean Templar,
And I still and will always be Maximilian X.
and we'll catch you on part three.
Later.